don't forget to...
I know. Danger level 9 is way too much for our little bubbles.
So, since this new Power Rangers movie just came out, I figured I'd take the opportunity to review one of the games. Unfortunately, I don't have too much to choose from since the only Power Rangers game I happen to own is this N64 game. Where did this even come from? I don't remember owning this. Yeah, well, it's better than nothing. Let's get started. Most people that grew up in the 90s were at least aware of the phenomenon that was the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I can't say that I was a huge fan in my own right, but I did know them, and my biggest personal memory of the series was probably the Power Rangers movie I had on VHS featuring the infamous Ivan Ooze. So anyway, let's see if Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue is any good. There's two main modes to the game, Titanium Quest, which I assume is the main story mode, and Megazord Arena, which is a versus style mode between giant robots and monsters, some of which are unlocked as you play through the game. The Titanium Quest menu is a little weird. You have episodes 1 through 3 listed and then simply story underneath. I assumed that these were the chapters of the story at first, especially when I selected episode 1 and then saw the different level names, so I selected story assuming that's how you'd start the game. But all the story actually does is show you the first cutscene from episode 1 before throwing you back to the menu. Basically, there's no reason for it to be an option. So episode 1 starts with the Rangers and their underwater base. Underwater base? Oh yeah, I probably should have mentioned that being released in 2000, this particular game features a version of the Rangers that I don't know anything about. Oh, cool. Underwater base, cool. So anyway, the Rangers are in their underwater base when they get a message from... Okay, hang on a second. I can accept the fact that these are new Rangers and there's going to be new locations and characters, but who the heck is this? Okay, so if they're underwater and there's trouble, then they're going to need to get a warning somehow, but I honestly didn't expect what looks to be some average mustached cop to be their messenger. No Zordon or some other ancient wise sage from space, just a regular cop in their secret headquarters. So, long story short, instead of facing the problem right away, the Rangers have to go through some virtual reality training to prepare for the real fight. So, sorta like the Danger Room from the X-Men? I guess that makes sense. Your first training challenge is with the Yellow Ranger, and... what? I think the Yellow Ranger has a wedgie. Look at the way she's running around all stiffly. Or maybe she had to use the bathroom before training and she didn't tell anyone. But yeah, the controls are simple. The joystick to run around, the A button to shoot forwards, and the B button to shoot backwards. All you have to do is simply wipe out all the enemies in the level and you're finished. Well, by enemies, I mean these green goopy puddles that just sit there. Wow. Now this is some hardcore training. Technically you can get hurt by these things by stepping in them, but there's no real reason for you to do that anyway, unless you just want someone to walk in on you and hear this sound out of context.
Hey Billy, did you finish your homework? I'll come back later.
After you wipe out the threatening Jello, you're off to the next virtual training mission, which this time has you driving a fire truck. You know, back in my day the Power Rangers had giant mechanical T-Rexes and saber-toothed tigers. But, plain old fire truck is cool too, I guess. So, as you may have guessed, your job here is to put out fires. But not just any fires. Cars that are randomly just on fire in the middle of a busy street. Yeah, I don't really see this situation happening in real life. Also, all of the cars that are on fire have the same voice shouting for help. I get that this is a simulation, but can't you at least program in a few different voices? Anyway, your mission is to put out all the flaming vehicles. Occasionally you'll start speeding up uncontrollably and we'll have to avoid some random enemy that just hates firemen, I guess. But it's not very difficult. Oh, don't forget to avoid crashing into other cars. Well, never mind. You don't really crash into cars, you just send them flying when you bump into them. I mean, seriously, these things will rebound off the building and spin away into the distance. They don't take up much health either, so hey, screw these guys. Out of the way, jerks, I've got fires to put out. Yeah, I'm sure the nearby citizens will be just fine. Oh, and I just love the cheers you get at the end for completing a mission. Yay! They just sound so enthusiastic. Next up, you actually get a battle with the Megazord. Oh man, this transformation sequence is getting me so pumped up. That's some good animation right there. The Zord battle is probably the clunkiest part of the game. You run around awkwardly trying to grab power-ups before your enemy, and using A to shoot missiles at them for damage. In a first-person perspective, well, unless you go in close for some melee damage. Then the camera suddenly shifts to third person and you punch instead of shooting missiles. The B button is for blocking, I think. It's sort of hard to tell from the first person point of view because when you press it, you just freeze in place while the screen glows. The most annoying part of this level is that both you and the enemy have health that regenerates fairly quickly over time, so it takes forever for you to actually get in a winning or even losing position. The melee seems to do the most damage, but they never stand still long enough for you to finish them off. All I can think to do is just ignore all the power-ups that are dropped all around you and just focus on damaging the enemy as quickly as possible. Don't let him get away. Eventually, he should go down. So right after your training is over, the first big baddie of the game is introduced, a giant tornado monster named Typhonus. He immediately causes havoc on the city, knocking over trees and sending mini tornadoes all over. But hang on, didn't that cop guy that was talking to us earlier say that we were facing a challenge soon? So that means he knew about this all along, and instead of telling us, had us do that unnecessary training instead. What the hell, man? Imagine if a hurricane was about to hit a city and cause major damage, but the one guy who knows about it doesn't tell anybody until after it's already happened. What a jerk. So the next mission is basically the same as the first one with the green goop, except with clearing falling logs. There's also some actual enemies this time, which have an even more ridiculous running animation than the Rangers. They don't really fight you either, they just run into you and explode. Wow, was this game the inspiration for the Heaven Smiles in Killer 7? I shouldn't be comparing this game to that. Besides, you actually do run into some enemies that throw projectiles later. Except these ones seem to have broken legs or something. I mean, look at the way they just limp around. I sort of feel bad for them. Maybe they're just mad because one of the fallen trees broke their legs and they wondered where the hell the Power Rangers were while tornadoes were ravaging the city. So they're just getting revenge. Oh, where were the Rangers? You know, they were just training in a simulation with green goo and fire trucks instead of dealing with the actual situation happening right now. There isn't really too much else to say about this game. As you play through, it just seems to cycle through the same few styles of levels before finishing off with the Megazord battle at the end. It doesn't even really increase the difficulty significantly, and would probably take more effort to fail than to win. They do introduce a new level type where you zoom around in a flying vehicle, but it's about as boring as the rest. This is a game for little kids with no expectations that just want to play as their favorite TV heroes. Can I appreciate that? Yes, I can. Does that excuse it for being a bad game? Not at all. Everything just feels so choppy and unpolished. I feel like even if I was a fan of this particular series as a kid, I would feel pretty let down with what this game has to offer. It isn't fun, nor is it challenging, so it lacks two of the attributes that often attract me to unfamiliar games. It also just isn't designed well in general. I mean, look at this part we have to go around town rescuing citizens. You find a guy between these two buildings, so you'd assume that if you kept following this path it might lead you to the next guy, or at least another area, right? Wrong. Nope, you're just greeted with a nice brick wall. Yeah, they totally took the time to program a brick wall just so you had to walk back through that long path again, making it take even longer to rescue the next guy and finish the level. What's wrong with these people? So what happens when you're playing a game designed by sadists? You stop playing. Well, that was a bad one. That's no easier way to say it. That was bad. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. It was just a game crapped out for kids who like Power Rangers. And to be honest, most kids probably wouldn't have complained. I mean, it was playable most of the time. You know, between this and Sub-Zero Mythologies, I really gotta find a good N64 game to review.